It's a subject kind of that we already did some research on. And then when Pamela Kort, the curator of this exhibition, kind of told me about her idea about showing actually the influence of Darwin on the art of his time and the art of the next decades, I felt that this is exactly an exhibition that we would want to do, that has never happened before, and it would be really a first to bring to the public. And it's an exhibition that not only deals with Darwin, but the main aim is to make available to the public, but also make them understand the influence that Darwin and the discussion around his theories had on visual culture, and especially on the art of his time and the art of the next generations.
There was no book about this, otherwise it would have been simple and someone else would have done it. You would have to say, oh, George Frederic Watts, who's thinking about him right now? And then you would go and you'd find an essay, very interesting one, that the Eve trilogy has something to do with the missing tailbone, tail of the Eve. What would that have to do? The Garden of Eve is being redefined, or that Martin Johnson Heade's work is a response to John Gould's monograph of the hummingbirds. So it was a lot of work, but it was a great joy to do. Das Ding ist irgendwie storm. Konnten wir mit Bildgruppe 1 anfangen. Well, the exhibition is essentially, we have this introductory room here with this marvelous Argus pheasant and our wall of beetles, one of Darwin's passions. So we have an introduction to Darwin. Then we have two large galleries devoted towards artists' reactions to Darwinism, which are not necessarily an embrace of Darwinism. This painting you can really recognize in several ways how Darwinism found its way into the visual arts. One has to remember that Darwin published a book on climbing plants in the 1870s, and this painting was made between 1870 and 1883. So yes, in a way, the painting of one of the most hardy climbing plants, the passion flower, could be said to respond to that. The French were a little bit more resistant to Darwinism, but they were very interested in staking out the area of prehistory for themselves. And they did that with a painting like this, where they tried to give form to how prehistoric man might look. But what's incredibly unusual about that painting is that she looks almost as if she went to the hairdresser and got her hair done, and her body is very Arcadian-like, and she's very heroic. She doesn't look anything like a caveman, ape-like. And we find the same thing here, where there are the women carefully, they're curiously looking at the men fighting here. And again, here you see these kind of fossils and the axe. These are actual finds that were found and then integrated into these pictures. This painting reveals, on the one hand, he said the question of where do we come from has to be answered by science. And that science, he thought, was what the science that Darwin described in Origin of the Species and Descent of Man. But the question of where are we going to, the painting also asked that, can only be answered by an interest in spiritist concerns. And Gabriel von Max was both a Darwinist and a spiritist. And in this painting, we see his empathy with the ape. He felt, as he got older in life, that the apes were much more superior to man. They didn't lie, they didn't cheat, they didn't steal. Then you come to Arnold Böcklin and Kubin and Haeckel, a real tight group of artists that are in constant dialogue through various sources with another. And the final section of the exhibition is devoted to Max Ernst. And Max Ernst's paintings are essentially very witty, and we have to remember that his take on Darwinism, it's not like he's thinking, oh my God, 1, 2, 3, Freud, then, you know, what was made of Darwin by Freud. It's that he wants to take that dialogue and give it his own twist. And he says in another painting like this one that hasn't been hung yet, they've stayed too long in the forest. It's almost as if they should have gotten out of there, and otherwise they wouldn't be in that petrified position that they are.
Within this whole meta-context of imagery of that time, you see that this exhibition actually pulls from it. This exhibition shows the public these documentary materials. It shows also the books, for example, by Jules Verne, films that were kind of based on Jules Verne's novels as well as others. And it makes also obvious that an artist obviously is not purely influenced only by aesthetics or by the work of his peers. And you will learn to understand that art does not happen kind of within its own ivory tower, within or without influences from all sorts of sources. And you will see that sciences and even a very succinct scientific debate at that time had a deep influence on the development of modern art. And at the end, I think you will not look at an Arnold Böcklin or an Odilon Redon or a Max Ernst painting the way you did beforehand.